Hi, welcome to the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and comment your thoughts and opinions on the stories. Let's get started. Am I the antagonist for taking my foster son to services? Yesterday I was getting ready to go to services when my foster son asked if he could go too. Usually my neighbor watches him when I go as she is retired and likes him a lot. I told him he could. So I texted my neighbor she didn't need to come over, and we finished getting ready and walked there. I introduced him to many of my friends, and they were all very warm and welcoming. When we were walking back he asked me questions about my religion and I answered them. He asked if I thought it was weird that we were different religions, and I said I didn't. I asked if he thought it was weird, and he said he didn't know. I asked if he wanted to go to church on Sunday, and he said that he didn't because he only ever went with his mom, and it would feel weird without her. Then we moved on to other topics. My neighbor saw me later in the backyard and asked if I was feeling better. I said I felt fine. She asked who watched my foster son. I said I took him to services with me. She lectured me for indoctrinating him into my religion and said I shouldn't do it again or she'll have to report me. I was shocked by her reaction because she's a nice lady. I thought it was nice that my foster son wanted to spend the day with me, and I have no problem taking him to a church if he ever wants to go. I see no need for this rigid separation of people of different faiths. I don't think one day is going to make him want to change religions. Am I way out of line here? He asked. And you didn't refuse him. NTA. I find it adorable that he wants to learn from you and hang around with you. What will anyone do if she reports you? You should look for a paper trail for the sake of your son's safety as well as your own. Comment by team member Charlie. Now for the top comments. NTA, you didn't force him, but I do not like how your neighbor didn't have a conversation with you about it, but went straight into making threats against you. She is neither your friend nor on your side, and what else will she make threats about? I wouldn't allow her to babysit again. She's normally incredibly friendly. Her behavior was so out of character, which is why I thought I might be Char. NTA, he asked. It's not like you forced him to go. He asked to go with you. You weren't pressuring him to change religions. As a former CPS worker, I suggest stop mention to the worker what happened. I seriously doubt it will be a big deal. I would confirm with the child privately that he felt no coercion and document the incident. Much ado about nothing. Not the a-hole. Am I the antagonist for harshly overstepping in regards to my stepdaughter? I have an 18-year-old son, Connor, who recently introduced us to his new girlfriend, Ashley. I'm only mentioning this because context, but Ashley is a bit on the bigger side. She isn't fat or obese by any means, but she isn't necessarily skinny. My stepdaughter, Holly, who is 22, is also on the bigger side. She however is clinically obese, but has been making an effort to get healthier. Ashley was quite shy when we first met her, and when I made dinner she barely ate anything. I did notice it, but I knew better than to point it out. I did ask Connor later, and he told me that Ashley isn't comfortable eating in front of strangers for valid reasons. He didn't specify the reasons and I didn't push. Holly randomly spoke up and said, well, we know the reason. She isn't exactly a model. Connor told her to fuck off, and that was it. I told her that she shouldn't say stuff like that, but she pulled the "I'm an adult and you're not my mom." Anyways, Ashley came over again last night and she didn't eat much. After dinner, her and Connor were hanging out in the basement when all of a sudden I hear Connor yelling. I go down and has just yelling at Holly while Ashley's trying not to cry. I managed to calm them down, and basically what happened was Ashley was hungry considering she barely ate, so they took more servings and took their plates to the basement. Ashley was eating and took some of Connor's as well when Holly apparently came out of nowhere yelling about how she knew Ashley eats like trash and that she sensed it from the second she saw her. She also told Ashley to stop acting like she's a supermodel because she's not. She also made a joke about how Connor definitely weighs less despite being a foot taller. I was horrified. Who on earth says things like that? My husband was as well, and he made it very clear to Holly We sat her down in her room and I basically told her that she's acting like a child. I also told her that she should focus on herself instead of projecting her insecurities onto a young girl who is clearly struggling. Holly started to cry and called me a bitch. Her mom called me sometime later saying that what I said was uncalled for and that as a stepmom, I didn't have any right to say a word to her. She told me that she understands her daughter did something terrible, but I'm no better and a bully. Her daughter is young and insecure. What's my excuse is what she said. I have boundaries regarding my stepdaughter, but this time her behavior was affecting my son and his GF. I guess I'm just curious. Am I the antagonist? Holly is freaking 22 years old, which is old enough to have social graces. Ashley required a dose of reality in order to grow and develop. Evidently, her mother is an enabler. Congratulations to you, your husband, and Connor for standing up for her. Compared to me, you showed more courtesy. Comment by team member Alex. Now for the top comments. NTA. Holly may be struggling with her own issues, but having your own issues is not a free pass to be a malicious bully. From what you're saying, Holly literally hid and waited for the opportune moment to jump out at Ashley and go, "Aha, you're fat. I knew it. Fatty MCF80 fat." And Holly is 22. This is behavior you don't accept out of a 8-year-old. 22. There is no excuse. Sitting her down and telling her that this behavior is not acceptable and will not be tolerated is not bullying. And clearly it's something her mother should have done a long time ago. If it was me, Holly would not be welcome in my house until she apologizes to Connor and Ashley. Sincerely apologizes. She's 22. Holly is 22. Why the hell are you all acting like she's a child? Holy cow. I completely missed that and mentally put her at 14-16. This is absolutely unacceptable from an adult woman. Crazy. NTA. Holly massively overstepped and was unnecessary cruel to Ashley. You had every right to call her out on it. Having insecurities doesn't mean you can be nasty. Am I the antagonist for revealing my sister's actual education level and job status to her boyfriend? I'm 19F. Sister is 24F. Sister's boyfriend is 27 meters. 4 fake names and easy reading. Will be calling my sister Eve and her boyfriend Jim. Eve and Jim have been dating for a little over a year in what can be considered a LDR. It's a 4-hour drive from our city to his, but they meet up every available weekend. Recently, my friends and I planned to have a Disney getaway, and since Jim lives by Disney, he and Eve would be joining my friend group for our Disney fun. Everyone was excited, but I was a bit nervous because I never actually met Jim before. A few days before the Disney trip, my sister caught COVID and had to cancel. Jim said he has been dying to meet me though, so he would still be going to Disney with my friends, but only staying for 1 day instead of 3. Friday comes and we meet for the first time. He started by asking questions about myself and eventually said something along the lines of, "When are you graduating from college? Did you have fun at your sister's graduation?" My sister never graduated from college and never received an associate's degree despite being a college student for 5 years. At the time, I thought Jim knew my sister is still a student, so I told him the truth. Conversation got a bit weird from there because we both realized Eve also lied about her job occupation. My sister never worked a day in her life and is living off our parents' money, but Jim thought she is a paralegal and financially stable, among other smaller lies. Like she still lives in the family home and not her own flat. That she has a bad rep with my dad because he wants to cut her off from his credit card and not because he is a sexist who doesn't support her career. She has no career and my dad's a good guy, etc. Jim left Disney early after that, and I didn't know what to feel. I was really confused for a while and began to question some things. Was I supposed to stick to my sister's story? Was I not supposed to tell Jim about the truth? Was I being a horrible sister, or did I do the right thing? I'm feeling so conflicted and my mind is so busy with thoughts that I just been in the hotel instead of enjoying Disney with my friends. My sister knows something went wrong because Jim isn't answering her calls or messages. She is really mad at me right now because I won't tell her why. My mom is also mad at me for the same reason, and I don't know what to do. I feel like I ruined their relationship and I just feel so shitty, but I think I did the right thing. TLDR, told my sister's boyfriend that she is jobless, no degree, and doesn't have her own apartment, contrary to what she told him. Everyone is mad at me, and I might be the worst sister of the year. Even if you had realized Eve was lying, you still would have obligated it to Jim to let him know, because she is a chronic liar. You protected him from a liar who would have lied to him throughout their relationship. Living is learning. Comment by team member Charlie. Now for the top comments. NTA, you engaged with Jim in good faith, and weren't specifically trying to sabotage her relationship as far as I can see. If she'd been carefully spinning him a fictional setup, the least she could have done, if she expected you to keep it up, would have been to tell you what the official story is. At which point you'd have felt like an ass for knowingly lying. NTA, she's learning the hard way why relationships built on lies aren't stable. Now if I was up and the seas asked me to lie about really important details, I would have been honest, given that he probably had ideas of moving in together and how their budget would look like, and realized he'd be taking care of her sister. NTA, your sister knew you were meeting Jim, right? And she didn't tell you any of this? If you had no idea that she had been lying to him and just answered his questions as he asked them, I don't see why anyone can be mad at you or blame you. And if she had told you, hey, here's a story I've told Jim, so back me up, i.e., asked you to lie, well, that would have just been a mess and not fair to you. But it doesn't even sound like that happened. I'd just tell her what happened. It's her own fault. I know it's awkward, but you did nothing wrong. I'm a pretty introverted person and horrible with strangers. I think my sister figured I wouldn't have genuine conversations with Jim because that's not my thing. Am I the antagonist for telling someone we don't like tourists, we like their money? I live in a popular small town tourist destination in the Midwest. The population triples every summer fall. Normally, tourism doesn't bother those of us to live here. Most tourists were nice, polite, and respectful. Besides, they're all gone by October, so it's not year round. But this year, there've been more tourists than I've ever seen, and the tourists are abnormally rude. Fireworks every night until 1 AM. Getting into fights at bars. Tailgating. Driving crazy on country roads. Yes, we do it too, but we know the roads, so it's not blind. And driving aggressive in town. Swerving through lanes. Yelling at cashiers. Throwing trash everywhere. Partying late at night with radios blaring. Coming to restaurants with parties of 10, 20 people with no reservations, and then complaining about ticket times. Not tipping. Trashing the places they do go to. Talk to other servers, and they said the same thing. Making passive aggressive comments like, you'd never survive in the city, or I can vacation here, but I could never live here all the time. Buying out popular local goods to take home. I could go on. It's been a lot this year. I went to the laundromat earlier today because most tourists leave Sunday morning, so it's pretty empty Sunday afternoons. When I got there, it was trashed like pretty much everywhere else is right now. There were some other locals I knew there cleaning up, and I helped out as soon as I put my clothes in the wash. There were 4 of us who usually do our laundry on Sundays going around and picking up fabrics off inner sheets, lint thrown on the ground, empty boxes of detergent, etc. Normally, this place is immaculate, but it had been trashed by people doing laundry on Saturday to go home on Sunday. There was a family of a mom, dad, and 3 kids washing their clothes, but ignoring the cleanup. I knew they were from out of town because they had license plates from another state. One man who was helping to clean said, 25-minute drive. We only have a couple more months of this, and it'll be quiet again. I said, thank God. A woman who was with the family looked at us and said, you don't like people vacationing here? I waved at a pile of trash someone left on a machine and said, we don't like tourists. We like their money. Well, she didn't like that and told me I was very rude. She said they spent plenty of money here, and if I had to clean a little I should be happy because there's nothing else for you to do. I told her she's right because tourists had pretty much ruined everything this year. She was going to say more, but her husband told her to stop. He and the kids helped us clean up a bit, but she was still fuming. Now I'm rethinking myself because, well, I'm a Midwesterner and rudeness isn't tolerated, and even still, it wasn't like I walked into them trashing the place. It's not her fault others have been rude and disrespectful. I'm thinking I should've kept my mouth shut. NTA, tourists are acting as if they have the right to cause trouble and wreak havoc wherever they like. The visitors are also much more rude than they used to be, I swear. Even if you weren't being particularly crowlop, you can only push someone so far. Comment by team member Corey. Now for the top comments. NTA. Just because someone's on fucking vacation does not excuse them from trashing the place or thinking they can do whatever the hell they want. Too much fucking entitlement. It's been infuriating this year because there are so many people. Apartments have been turned into Airbnbs and the rent for the ones who stayed long-term apartments have skyrocketed. It's trashed everywhere we go. Both my jobs have become 10x's harder because people have lost their damn minds. However, it wasn't her fault. They weren't doing anything other than laundry. I still kind of feel bad about what I said. NTA. So it's time for the town's residents to take up their local councils and push for updating of some local noise/disturbances and literal laws. That way when families come in and set off fireworks well into the night, locals can call the police and the offending family get fined. Perhaps more beans need to be placed around the town. There are ways to better negotiate tourist traffic and compliance in a small area. NTA. I live in New Orleans and there is a spectrum to tourists, and maybe adding the context that everyone was behaving badly might have helped. But honestly, people need to not treat tourist destinations like hotel rooms. They also shouldn't treat hotel rooms that way and realize people have to live there year round. They have to get to work, plant their gardens, walk their dogs, and just sleep. If tourists keep pushing, then they are going to have a worse time because those that can leave the industry will, or the tourist places will just dry up because no one will have the patience to keep them going. Am I the antagonist for holding my son's college fund hostage? I, 48 male, have a son that graduated this year from high school. We, my wife and I, started his college fund the minute we found out she was pregnant. Since we make good money, in the mid six figures, his college fund currently has almost $400k in it. We have never told our son what to do with his life. We may have guided his decisions as any good parent should, but since he was still young we let him make his own decisions. We also never expected academic excellence or forced him into sports or artistic activities. Now that he graduated high school, he said that he did not want to go to college. We said as long as he was sure he could whatever he wanted. He refused trade schools too. He also did not want to work with us in our business. He said that he planned to use his college fund to start a business of his own. I said that I will allow it only if he takes some business management, accounting and law classes in the nearby community college. I said that I would pay them out of pocket and not from the fund, and then I would expect a well-made business plan before I would give him the money. My wife agrees 100%, but he called us for holding his college fund hostage to make him do what we want. We think we are just doing our best to make sure that his business succeeds. So am I the antagonist? Until the company reaches specific milestones, a teenager's college fund should be regarded as an investor. Your son comes seem as entitled or immature. You are being very accommodating by not requiring education. Perhaps he has to perform a job for which he is already qualified. Comment by team member Parker. Now for the top comments. NTA. You offered to pay for the course, not make him pay for it himself. Who doesn't want to take a course in running a business if they intend to start running a business? Someone whose business model is I have 400k in assets. NTA. It's a college fund, not a fucking around and having fun fund. You asked him to show proof he understands what he is doing with his so-called business. Let him get a job and learn some responsibility before giving him 400k. It's a college fund, not a fucking around and having fun fund. Exactly. At the end of the day, a college fund is a invest in my child fund. If he doesn't want to go to college, that's okay, but then OP should treat that money like an investor would. and asking for a business plan and to know that the founder/seer has had at least a bit of real world experience or taken a few biz classes is perfectly reasonable. You are not the a-hole at all. You and your wife are incredibly generous and have set super reasonable guidelines of how you'd like the money to be spent. Not to mention, if he started a business, there is a good chance it would not even take off. So I think it is incredibly generous for you to support that expense as well. And it seems wise to have a couple caveats in place if he chooses to go that route. I think your son is acting incredibly entitled and doesn't realize how lucky he is to even have a college fund set aside for him. So many adults are drowning in student debt. He needs some big picture perspective. It sounds to me like you're doing everything right in this scenario. And how awesome that you and your wife had the foresight and the means to contribute to a college fund for your son. Way to go, Dad. Am I the antagonist for telling my sister she isn't a mom? My sister got married a few days ago and she became stepmom to her husband's 2 children. The kids do not call her mom and there has been a lot of trouble in her home because they say she can't be their new mom, and she has already started telling people she's a mom and introducing herself as her stepkid's mom. Their mom passed away 3 years ago when the kids were 5 and 6 and the kids are now 8 and 9. My sister has known them for a little over a year. The whole wedding was a mess and I felt so bad for the kids. They didn't want to be there. They actually got out of their seats and walked away during the ceremony, and during the photos we heard the youngest cry and say she, sister, wasn't replacing his mom. The day after the wedding my sister was at our parents and told us that being a mom is hard work. I told her she's not a mom, she's a stepmom, and if she wants to have a good relationship with them, she should stop violating the boundaries they are putting down. She yelled at me and told me I'm an asshole for dismissing the role and not accepting that step-parents can be just as much parents as BO1s. Some of the family are split on this because she went and told them all. A few have said she became their mom the day she married her husband and we all need to accept that, while others agreed that you can't force it and she might never be mom to those kids. Am I the antagonist? NTA, your sister is pressuring the kids into a relationship they don't desire. They will develop a hate for her. Therapy is necessary for the entire family. She is in a position of authority as their stepmother and ought to be abiding by the house rules. Comment by team member Taylor. Now for the top comments. NTA, you're right. She can't just walk into that role. She is trying to replace the kids' BO mom, which is impossible. It will take time for her to create a bond and develop relationships with them. And as it stands, she is sabotaging herself in that regard. Edit. It's not a matter of whether the rest of the family will accept her as the children's mother. It's a matter of whether the children will accept her in that role. NTA seems like she's more interested in #MOMLIFE clout than actually being mother figure. This is especially egregious since their actual mother is dead. You can't compete with that, and trying to is going to keep driving those poor kids further and further away. Part of this is also on the dad for having such a fast relationship when he has young kids. I think daddy's just as pushy about it as she is. He wants them to accept her as their mom. I have even heard them mention adoption and seeing a lawyer. Lucky for the kids the lawyer told them the kids would need to be on board for it to happen.